Hello everyone, myself Sowmya, Assistant Professor in CSE AIML Department, MLR Institute of Technology. In this video, we are going to discuss about vulnerability attacks. So coming to the overview of this presentation covers introduction to blockchain security, types of different attacks, vulnerability attacks. So 51% attacks, Sybil attacks, smart contract vulnerability, double spending, and impact of these different vulnerability attacks and mitigation strategies, how to overcome these attacks, and we will also discuss some case studies. So introduction to blockchain security. So we know blockchain is nothing but it is a distributed ledger technology that provides transparency, immutability and security. So blockchain is nothing but distributed ledger technology. So distributed in the sense, for example, if I have 4 nodes in the blockchain, so each node will maintain a blockchain, a copy of blockchain, and that provides transparency. Everyone can see the transactions in that immutability. So once if I write the transaction, I cannot modify that, and it will also provide the security. There is no problem of single point of failure. Even if one node loses this copy, other nodes will maintain this copy. So there's a blockchain definition. So security is essential in the blockchain to maintain the integrity of transactions and to prevent the unauthorized access. So not only in the blockchain, wherever you go, if you are maintaining some sort of data, you need to provide the security. So despite of robustness, blockchain networks are susceptible to various vulnerability attacks that exploit weakness in the design and implementation. As we know, it's a newer technologies. So we have only less number of developers to maintain this blockchain technology. So because of that, we are getting some vulnerability attacks just because of the weakness in the implementation and the coding part. So if the code is not correct, because of that code mistake, we are getting some security vulnerabilities. So different types of vulnerability attacks are, the first one is 51% attack. So 51% attack is nothing but generally in the blockchain, what we do, we have 4 nodes here. So I'm just raising a transaction. So how the transaction will be validated in the blockchain? So every node, the validators will involve in the consensus mechanism to validate the transaction. So all these nodes will validate this transaction. For example, out of 4 members, if 3% says the transaction is valid, then this transaction will be considered as a valid transaction. For example, out of these 4 persons, if 3% says the transaction is not valid, then the transaction is not considered as valid. So this is the process in the consensus mechanism. Of course, the different consensus mechanism have different process, but the majority of voting will be considered for the validation of the transaction. So 51% attack in the sense, so out of these 4 nodes, consider 3 nodes are malicious nodes. So 3 nodes are not a valid nodes. I mean they are not legal nodes. Then what they will say, of course they know, as we know, they know this transaction is not valid, but still they will say this transaction is valid. Why? Because they are not trusted, they are not legal nodes, they are illegal nodes or they are malicious nodes. What they are saying 3 nodes are saying this transaction is valid. But without checking the identity of this node, what I'll consider, okay, this transaction is valid only. Why? Because more than 50% of the people have said the transaction is valid. So that's why I'm considering that. So 51% attack in the sense, more than 50% of the nodes are malicious nodes and they are saying that the transaction is a valid transaction. Then finally, that invalid transaction will also be considered as valid just because of their voting. So that attack is called as 51% attack. So occurs when a single entity or group controls more than 50% of the network mining power. So here we have 4 nodes. Out of the 4 nodes, 50% means only 2 nodes. But more than 50%, 3 nodes are malicious nodes and they are misusing their power, right? So they are saying an invalid transaction as a valid transaction and they are including that invalid transaction into the blockchain. And coming to the Sybil attack. So Sybil attack in the sense, they will create multiple fake identities. So just like I'm doing some online voting here. I have some ID. Consider my ID is 50. With this ID, I have voted, right? And for this same person, it is creating different fake IDs and with those IDs, it is providing the voting. So that is called Sybil attack. So for a one person or for a single node, it is creating multiple identities. Using those multiple identities, it is gaining the control. And smart contract vulnerability. So in the smart contract, just because of the coding also, we are getting some vulnerabilities like reentrancy, overflow, unauthorized access. Reentrancy in the sense, for example, in my contract, I'm calling other function or other contract, but I'm not storing the state of this this particular contract. So when I go back here, where should I go back? Like return back again. If I store the previous smart contract address, then only I can come back. So sometimes we may get this reentrancy attack. So integer overflow, we know like range for integer. For every programming language, we are maintaining some ranges for integers or float numbers, right? So if you are using overflow of that, so just because of that integer overflow also, the security vulnerability will occur. And coming to the double spending. So I have only 20 rupees. So now I want to buy a cake which is of cost 20 and a bun. Again, it is also cost of bun. So with the 20 rupees, of course, I know I cannot buy both. But with double spending, what I am doing, I am buying cake. And the same time, simultaneously, I am spending this 20 rupees to bun also. So that is nothing but double spending. So it's a digital asset, right? If you are going with the cryptocurrency, it is a digital asset. So we don't have a physical form here. So the person is transferring 20 Ether, whatever it may be, 20 Bitcoins to one account at the same time, simultaneously. So without completing this transaction, before completing this transaction itself, he is using the same 20 ethers to some other transaction also. So sometimes it may happen that thing is called as double spending. So the same thing, 51% attack in the sense more than 50% of the network is handled or monitored by the vulnerability nodes or the malicious node. And coming to the examples, so Ethereum Classic attack in the 2019. So in 2019, we got Ethereum Classic attack where $1 million worth of Ethereum coins were double spent. So double spent, they have double spent these many Ethereum coins in the 2019 just because of this 51% attack. So coming to the Sybil attack, so the attacker creates multiple fake identities of nodes to gain the control or disrupt the network. So coming to the examples of these attacks, so it will be used in the P2P network and decentralized systems. So coming to the smart contract vulnerabilities, as we discussed, reentrancy attack, integer overflow attacks, all these comes under smart contract vulnerability. And we know DAO attack, just because of smart contract, it was happened in the 2016, right? It is around $150 million of ethers. And coming to the double spending, so using the same amount for different actions simultaneously is called double spending. So to prevent this double spending, we need consensus, robust consensus mechanism and confirmation mechanism. So consensus mechanism is used to validate the transaction. So if I perfectly validate the transaction, then I can overcome this double spending. So coming to the impact of vulnerability attacks. So just because of this 51% attack or Sybil attack, what happens? So what is the impact? So vulnerability attacks have significant implication for blockchain networks and their users. So loss of funds. So the funds will be lost, right? Just we have seen in the DAO attack, right? So the set of amount around $150 million have been transferred to some unknown account. So erosion of trust. Damage to the reputation of blockchain technology and common consequences. So we have trusted blockchain blindly just because of that security, but if it is not secure, if it is not providing the security, then the trust will be lost. And security breaches can also lead to legal and regulatory repercussions for organizations and individuals involved. So just because of the security breaches, the organizations or the individual persons who are involved in the blockchain may not trust this. And mitigation strategies, how we can overcome this. So implementing the consensus mechanism that are resistant to 51% attacks. So to overcome this 51% attacks, so we can introduce or we can use some more consensus mechanisms like proof of stake, delegated proof of stake. Proof of stake in the sense, if you want to involve in the validation process, first you need to stake something as a initial charge. For example, if I want to participate in the voting process or the consensus process, I need to give some stake. That means I need to give some amount initially. And utilizing identity verification and reputation system to prevent Sybil attack. So in the Sybil attack, what happens? A single node will act as a multiple nodes. It will create a fake identity. So if we provide a identity verification process, a strong identity verification process, then you can overcome the Sybil attack also. And conducting thorough code review and security audits of smart contracts before deployment. So as we know, if I deploy the smart contract, it cannot be changed. So before deploying the smart contract itself, if you conduct a thorough code review and security audit thoroughly, then you can overcome this smart contract vulnerabilities also. And enhancing the network security through encryption, multi-signature wallets and other security measures. So we can increase encryption mechanisms and multi-signature wallets while maintaining the wallets. If you maintain multi-signature wallets, so because of all these, we can overcome these set of attacks like 51% attack, Sybil attack and security vulnerabilities, double spending. All these things we can overcome just by implementing all these in your blockchain technology. So coming to the case studies, we have discussed all these case studies in the previous slide. The first one is DAO hack in the 2016. It just because of smart contract vulnerability. And Ethereum Classic 51% attack in the 2019. In 2019, Ethereum Classic attack was happened. It is 51% attack. That means in the network, so more than 50% of the nodes are malicious nodes and they have taken an invalid decision. Because of that, the attack was happened. And Mt. exchange attack, it was happened in 2014. So it was one of the largest cryptocurrency exchange at the time, lost over 850,000 bitcoins due to security vulnerabilities. So it is also due to security vulnerability, they lost these many bitcoins. It's a cryptocurrency exchange. So we have so many cryptocurrency exchange platforms. So in this platform, because of the security vulnerability, these many bitcoins were lost. So that's about the vulnerabilities, security vulnerabilities in the smart contracts. So in this video, we discussed about the introduction to blockchain security, different types of vulnerability attacks, 51% attack, Sybil attack, smart contract vulnerabilities, double spending, and what are the impacts of these attacks and what are the mitigation strategies. And we have also discussed about the case studies. Thank you.